Welcome to this comprehensive documentary on one of the greatest engineering achievements in human history, the Panama Canal. For over a century, this marvel of ingenuity has been vital to global trade and maritime travel. In the next 20 minutes, we'll chart the fascinating history of this canal, exploring how and why it was built, the immense challenges it posed, and the monumental impact it continues to have on our world today. Chapter 1: Early Dreams of a Shortcut. The Spanish vision. As early as the 16th century, Spanish explorers recognized that a shipping route across the Isthmus of Panama could drastically cut the lengthy journey around the southern tip of South America. In 1534, King Charles V of Spain ordered a survey to determine the feasibility of building a canal, but the technology and resources were far too limited to attempt such a massive undertaking. Other proposals over the centuries. The idea of creating a passageway through Central America persisted. Various proposals emerged in the 18th and 19th centuries, especially as global trade expanded and nations sought quicker routes between oceans. However, political turmoil, lack of resources, and engineering limitations consistently stalled the idea. Chapter 2: The French Attempt, Ferdinand de Lesseps's Vision. By the late 19th century, France had successfully constructed the Suez Canal under the leadership of Ferdinand de Lesseps. Buoyed by this monumental success, de Lesseps turned his attention to Panama. In 1879, a French company was formed, led by de Lesseps, to construct a sea-level canal across the isthmus, mirroring the Suez approach. Daunting challenges. Unlike the relatively flat desert terrain in Egypt, Panama's tropical rainforest posed extreme obstacles. The jungle's climate brought torrential rains, flooding, and landslides. Additionally, workers fell victim to tropical diseases like malaria and yellow fever, drastically increasing mortality rates. Financial and engineering collapse. The sea level plan required an enormous amount of earth excavation, far more than Suez. Massive cost overruns, corruption scandals, and disease outbreaks drained resources and morale. By 1889, the French Panama Canal Company declared bankruptcy, leaving the project half-finished and thousands of workers jobless or deceased. Chapter 3: America steps in, the strategic importance to the United States. The United States viewed a transisthmian canal as crucial to linking its burgeoning east and west coast naval power and commercial shipping routes. Initially, the U.S. considered building a canal in Nicaragua, but the partially completed project in Panama and intense lobbying by Felipe Bunau Varilla, a French engineer, convinced many that Panama was the better choice. Negotiations with Colombia and Panama's independence. At the time, Panama was part of Colombia. The U.S. attempted to negotiate a treaty with Colombia to acquire rights to continue work on the canal, but failed. In 1903, a revolution in Panama, backed politically, though indirectly, by the United States, led to Panama's independence. Soon after, the U.S. signed the Hay-Bunau-Varilla Treaty with the new Panamanian government, granting the U.S. perpetual control of the canal zone in exchange for financial compensation. The U.S. takes over construction. The U.S. purchased the French canal assets, including machinery and excavated sections, for $40 million. With ownership in hand and political control secured, the United States was finally ready to resume the colossal project in 1904. Chapter 4: Overcoming engineering and medical obstacles. Tackling disease. One of the first priorities was to address the deadly diseases. Under the leadership of Dr. William C. Gorgas, an aggressive sanitation campaign was launched. Mosquito breeding grounds were eliminated. Workers received better housing, and infrastructure like drains and water systems were improved. Within just a few years, yellow fever was eradicated in the canal zone, and malaria cases decreased sharply, drastically improving worker safety and morale. A lock-based design. Unlike the French attempt at a sea-level canal, the U.S. decided on a lock-based system. The plan revolved around constructing massive locks at either end to raise ships up to Gatun Lake, an artificial lake created by damming the Chagres River, then lowering them back down to sea level on the other side. This approach required less earth to be moved and reduced the risk of catastrophic flooding. Key construction milestones: Gatun Dam and Gatun Lake. one of the largest earth dams of its time, creating the enormous freshwater lake that became central to lock operations. Culebra Cut. The most challenging section involved excavating the continental divide. Landslides were frequent, and workers toiled under dangerous conditions. Lock systems. Gigantic lock chambers, each over 1,000 feet in length, were built at Miraflores and Pedro Miguel on the Pacific side, and at Gatun on the Atlantic side. These locks relied on gravity-fed water from Gatun Lake to raise and lower ships. Chapter 5. Completion and Grand Opening. Triumphant finish. After a decade of intense work, 1904 to 1914, the U.S. project was finally completed. Construction cost the United States around $375 million, a massive sum at the time, in addition to the $40 million paid to the French. The total workforce reached over 40,000 at its peak, comprising laborers from the Caribbean islands, Europe, Asia, and the United States. First official transit. The cargo ship SS Ancon made the first official transit on August 15, 1914, marking the official opening of the Panama Canal to maritime traffic. The event was somewhat overshadowed by the outbreak of World War I in Europe, but it nevertheless signaled a new era in global shipping. Theodore Roosevelt's role president. Theodore Roosevelt took great pride in the canal, famously calling it the greatest engineering feat of that age. His active support and political maneuvering were instrumental in pushing the project to completion. Chapter 6. Political Challenges and Treaties. American Control and Panamanian Tensions. The U.S. controlled the canal zone for decades, which led to political tensions and resentment among Panamanians who believed the canal was built on their land without granting them full sovereignty. Over the years, there were demonstrations and civil unrest demanding Panamanian control. Towards Panamanian sovereignty, in 1977, after years of negotiations, U.S. President Jimmy Carter and Panamanian leader Omar Torrijos signed the Torrijos-Carter treaties. These treaties laid out the process for gradually transferring full control of the canal from the United States to Panama by the end of 1999. Handing over the canal on December 31, 1999, the canal officially came under Panamanian ownership. This symbolic moment ended nearly a century of U.S. authority in the region and marked a new chapter for Panama. Chapter 7. Modern upgrades and the canal today. Maintenance and modernization. Constant maintenance is required to keep the canal operating smoothly. From dredging to upgrading lock infrastructure, Panama invests heavily in preserving its vital waterway. The canal remains a crucial passage. Nearly 14,000 ships transit every year, connecting over 140 maritime routes worldwide. Panama Canal Expansion Project, completed in 2016, the Panama Canal Expansion, also known as the Third Set of Locks Project, was a $5.25 billion undertaking. New locks, wider and deeper, were built to accommodate the Neo-Panamax ships, which can carry roughly double the cargo of the older Panamax ships. This expansion ensures the canal remains competitive in global shipping, as vessels continue to grow in size. Economic and environmental considerations. The canal significantly boosts Panama's economy through toll revenues, but faces challenges related to water supply and climate change. The region's rainfall patterns affect the water levels in Gatun Lake. The Canal Authority has initiated various conservation efforts to maintain adequate water resources. Conclusion: over 5 centuries have passed since Europeans first imagined a passage across the Isthmus of Panama. Today, that vision is realized by a sprawling engineering masterpiece that bridges 2 oceans. The canal's story is one of bold ambition, profound sacrifice, and constant innovation. It has transformed global trade routes and shaped the destiny of nations, especially the small but mighty nation of Panama, whose identity and economy are forever linked to this remarkable waterway. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the history of the Panama Canal. If you found this documentary insightful, please give it a thumbs up, share it with fellow history enthusiasts, and subscribe for more stories that shaped our modern world. Until next time, safe travels and keep exploring.